Ever since its launch in June 2020, Valorant has continued to impress the shooter world with its tight gameplay that attracts both casual and competitive players, strong anti-cheat that helps preserve the competitive integrity of the game like never before, strong communication from its development team, and of course, all the skins that their wallets can handle. Valorant truly is a translation of the tactical FPS brought into the modern day. With its continued growth, however, more criticism towards the game's shortcomings will continue to accumulate. We're already starting to see it. More and more demands of swifter agent balance, fixes for the inconsistencies of the matchmaking system, or lowering the controversial prices of weapon skins. Despite being an active consumer of Valorant discourse across several forms of social media, there's one major issue that bugs the hell out of me every time I open the game that I rarely hear any complaints about, and that is the user interface of the game's menus. So, as a part of my senior project in graphic design, I set upon myself the goal to create what I would see as the solution to Valorant's current usability issues, focusing much more on the user experience end of the UI UX formula, which, to my eyes, is by far the biggest issue at the moment. It's no real surprise to me that user experience isn't a hot topic in the Valorant community. There certainly is more direct value in discussing how Jet's dash could be nerfed than the placement and movement of buttons on the wrapping of the game, but hear me out. As it stands, the experience Valorant currently provides outside of the game is, at best, mediocre. Navigating around different parts of the interface works well enough, but it all falls apart by burying important information deep within submenus and not providing enough visual feedback through its animation. For a game that prides itself on having added style to the tactical FPS market, there's a lot of extremely stiff movement ongoing within its menus. Add on to these issues the constant change of button placement, unreadable text, and whatever this is, and we start to run into a lot of problems that don't seem as big as they are, simply because we're able to adapt and get used to them. Make no mistake, just because you may be comfortable with how things are now, doesn't mean these things can't be improved in drastic ways. Overall, I've been disappointed with the community response to these issues. I've already mentioned that criticism is rare, so I feel it's only fair that I discuss what I have seen. I'm happy to occasionally find UI redesigns break the front page of Valorant subreddit. To my disappointment, however, they're typically just UI redesigns. They change the appearance of the menus, the shapes of the buttons, or the colors of the background, rather than also focusing on the user experience side of the equation. In other words, it's the same as the current menus, it just kind of looks different. To my eyes, lots of these redesigns create their own issues that may look visually appealing, but also add on to the game's current problems when it comes to usability. To begin with a simpler change that I'd like to propose, I would suggest adding more flashes of animation to the interface. On a surface level, you may see this as a superfluous change that doesn't solve much, but I think making these menus more fun to use can serve actual utility to players. For instance, think about all the money you might have spent on melee weapons. Melee weapons are by far the most useless weapons in Valorant in comparison to what guns provide, and yet I'm sure you have more melees than you do even Phantoms or Vandals. The main reason is the animation these knives bring to the game. When you have nothing to do in-game, spamming the animation on these weapons is genuinely a fun hand-warmer. Why couldn't this expand to the menu? If you're sitting in a lobby for several minutes at a time, waiting for a match and you have nothing to do, clicking the various buttons and watching the menus fly about could provide a similar feeling. When factoring in the flashy nature of the presentation of the game, it's a no-brainer that things like the store and the career tab should hold a bit more style than a simple fade-in. It's not that this change would entice you to go to these menus any more than you would, but why should it be so stiff when you do choose to go there? I also brought the match history and act rank tabs back into one viewable page in the career tab. I'm unsure why this change was made to begin with. It makes more sense to me that these two sections of information belong on the same screen. Next is my redesign of the home menu. Immediately, many will see it as being a Valorantified version of CSGO's home menu. And yes, this is practically what it is. Valve already made this transition from the top tab style to the pull-out side menu in Counter-Strike, and I really think Valorant would benefit from going down this same road. The symmetrical pullouts provide a consistency in their function that, in my opinion, both looks good and teaches the players how to use the menus faster, while also allowing experienced players to float around the menus with ease. It also provides a larger field in the center for the content of the game to exist. This stacked vertical menu also gives me an opportunity to talk about a major issue with the current Valorant design language, and that's the horizontal positioning of content. In general, I don't think having lots of options existing side by side feels too awful, especially if you can have everything there with no need for them to move. Functionally, the current home screen doesn't have a lot of issues. The main issue comes when we need to add a scroll function to that horizontal list. Suddenly, you either need to use the keyboard, which you don't need for almost the entire rest of the interface beyond actual typing, an awkward on-screen button, or most popularly, a scroll that translates up and down to left and right scrolling, which fights against our natural human instincts. It just feels off. Considering how often the community calls Riot out on seemingly sucking as much money out of its users as possible, the systems around actually utilizing these purchases needs to be broken down and remade from the ground up. Here's my solution to this major problem. I've completely reimagined those boxes on the bottom as a vertical scroll. Not only does this format make it more natural to maneuver around with a mouse and a scroll wheel, but it also fits the content, or the gun skins, a lot better than the small thumbnails that exist today. Again, this feels like a small change, but I think something like this absolutely must happen in Valorant, hopefully sooner rather than later. I've also made the same change to the Battle Pass menu, where the content doesn't fit as well as gun skins, but that's absolutely worth it for the gain and ease of functionality. Agent Select also has a lot of issues. I think that the menu being thrown off for everyone when a new agent is added sucks to fight against. I would prefer to see agents separated by class, not only to help mitigate this issue, but to help newer players be able to visualize the agents that have comparable synergies. I also fixed some issues with readability. The current text can be hard to read on the background of the agent animation. I experience this issue frequently while playing Astra, as well as matching the background with the current in-game level, which currently exists as a small text element in the top left corner of the screen. Lots of people thought this was how it worked when the game came out, and on occasion I still get people who think we're playing Breeze because of the background. Yes, even in Immortal lobbies. If this was people's first impression of the software, then it screams to me that this is how it should be.
Cool, let's go.
I also incorporated this Agent Select menu into the agent screen in the main menus for the sake of consistency, as well as removed the horizontal scrolls with this custom item selection for the agent-specific items. With this video, I hope to start some higher form of discussion about the relationship between user interface and user experience in Valorant. I'm interested in hearing the thoughts of others. I've included the link to a survey in the description that you can fill out if you feel like sharing your thoughts on my work, as well as sharing what you would like changed. I'm looking to continue to evolve this redesign, and to do that, I want to know how others feel about Valorant's menus. It doesn't matter if you've clocked 5,000 hours in the last 2 years or have played for just a day. Any human can use an interface and tell if something is off or not. If you don't want to fill out a whole survey, perhaps consider leaving a comment, sharing your thoughts on the current menu systems. I acknowledge that others may disagree with my visions, and although to my perception, a lot of these changes feel like they're obvious, I would encourage the community to speak more on these small issues they feel when navigating the menus, as giving Riot verbal feedback as to what feels off is the best way they can know what changes to make.